Right. That sounds great. Speaking of craft beers, it's 5 o'clock here, and I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy a bit of this. And
What are you drinking?
you know what? Actually, this is called Profuse Juice. It's a 10 barrel, 10 barrels local Oregon stuff. Um, oh yeah, fantastic. So, and actually, before I really get into this, I do a ritual kind of thing before I do any sort of video podcast. So I need to turn this off, leave the audio on because I'm going to do a quick double backflip to land on my pinkies and back over onto my feet. So here we go. Hold it, man. Okay. Okay.
Did you do it?
I did it. It's just a tradition I like to do before any sort of video podcast of sorts. It's just thank you for sticking with me for that. So continue on. Sorry, yeah. So I'm down Portland.
Oh my gosh, man, that's so good. I feel like I'm going to have to lift every effort of mine when it comes to a podcast because mine's pretty much, hey, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started.
It's all right, man. No, there's creative ways to deal with it. If you think about what would people do if the camera was off and they could hear you, it's like, well, let's think. What would I be doing? What could I do? Oh, I'm fishing outside right now. I just caught a massive sailfish. Oh my god! Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good, dude. I think Portland is a Melbourne on steroids. On steroids, to be honest. We're all about craft beer. I don't know if you guys are obsessed with coffee and good food and stuff in Portland, but man, it sounds like you'd fit in pretty comfortably over in Melbourne.
Yeah, craft beer and coffee. That sounds pretty Portland-esque. Yeah, that's a very accurate statement, I would say. It's, on top of that, it's outdoors and camping and the occasional protests and disagreements and arguments about silly things. But it's Portland has a lot of flavor.
Oh, I can imagine, man. Especially in this particular environment, I'd love to watch Portland because I know, just like Melbourne, there's a real sort of politicized movement going on at the moment where everyone likes to get out on the street and shout their opinions. And what's it like, man? Is it a tense sort of vibe in Portland at the moment, or is everyone? It's like we were at an organic shop here in Melbourne yesterday, and my wife and I were laughing because we're like, these people are so into their health and nutrition, but they all seem so angry. And my only perspective of Portland is off Portlandia, so I'm not sure I'm getting an accurate representation.
I'll be honest. I haven't watched the whole series of Portlandia, but like the one or two episodes I've seen, I feel like I've lived the scenarios that they're talking about. And until I saw the show, everybody kept saying that, oh, it's like Portlandia. Is it everything like Portlandia? I'm like, it can't be that accurate. And sure enough, if I watch it, I'm like, oh my God, I've sat in a restaurant where someone explains to me the chicken's life and where they come from right before I eat it. And I'm like, oh, this is exactly the show. Like, I get it. Oh wow. But I don't know, man. I feel like Portland's a very open-minded city, and every opinion is welcome, and there's no wrong or no right answer to everything. Obviously, you got your pockets and congregated opinions in different parts of the city, and people speak louder than others. But yeah, I think like today, like I said, there was a woman who kind of gave us this disgusting look, and she muttered something and walked off, and I was just like, I feel like I just witnessed the internet in person. Like you just argue, say something really rude, and then you storm off. I was like, I just lived the internet in face-to-face form. That's so rude. So that's Portland. It makes it open and uncomfortable to just say what you're thinking. There's got to be a limit somewhere. There's a line in the sand.
So, man, what year did you move to Portland, or what year did you go to U of O?
I was at Oregon from 2006 to 2010. Yeah.
Okay, and then I reckon, yeah, the first time I think I saw your name in a big way was I think it was Monaco where you ran 3:30, beat Ryan Gregson, and I woke up and heard that Ryan Gregson had run 3:31, and then I saw some other white guy ahead of him, and I was like, hang on a second, what is going on in this race? And I watched some of your interviews and heard a little bit of talk after that, but that's where you sort of shot onto the scene. So that was 2010. So that was when you were still running at U of O, hey?
Yeah, it was the summer after I graduated. Yeah. Monaco is I don't know, just a career defining race. And I guess to your point, there you go. It defined my career quite literally. But that was I don't know. It was my first time really going international into Europe and competing over there. I was with my coach Vin Lanana, and we were just kind of, I don't know, I was a kid playing around with like all the big kids, and like I was just on the stage, just trying to, I don't know, hold my own. And I remember that I'd stuck to my plan. The race went off. I sat in the back like I normally do, and they came through at like 52 or some ridiculously fast time, and I was like 53, 54. Okay. And so I just kind of hung back, and Ryan was right there with me, just kind of hanging for about 2.5, 3 laps. And then all of a sudden, we're starting to move forward, and that 52 ate everybody up. And we went from about, I don't know, like 10th or something, and skyrocketed up to like 4 and 5. And I think on that home stretch, I was just kind of gritting my teeth and running, and I didn't really realize that I wasn't at my top speed until Ryan came up on my shoulder, and I was like, oh, hell no. And I started thinking a little harder. And I came across the line. No idea what time I ran. I was just like disappointed that I finished 4th, but also had a good time because it was in Monaco. And then like Flow Track and my coach and everybody came over. It's like, oh my God, you have any idea what you just run? And I couldn't really put it into perspective because it was weird. I didn't know running like, people know running. I just figured 3 3/4 laps on the track, 1500. I'd run 3:37. I was pretty good. And I didn't understand the efforts to have to make it to 3:30. It just kind of happened. Fast forward about 10 years, understanding what 3:30 means now, I can't even fathom it. Like, it's unbelievable. I've watched that race maybe 1 or 2 more times, and it's like, how did I hold on to a 53, 54-second lap? Like, I don't think I could run that to save my life right now. Like, God.
Man, so you
as I sit here, take a sip of my beer.
You're still looking in pretty good shape, and I can say that with confidence because this video is coming through nice and clear. But so how old were you when you ran that 3:30, that breakthrough race? How old were you, and what was your PB before that one?
I was 22, I think. Yeah, about 22, and I was a 3:37 1500 runner. I think that was maybe. Well, let's see. I only ran 1500s like my senior year, really. I ran 1 or 2 my junior year. So before that race, there's probably maybe 5 or 6 races I had done. I'd done the 2 at NCAAs, 2 at regionals, maybe 1 or 2 in between. So that's 6. Then maybe 1 my junior year, 7 or 8. So that was maybe one of my 9th or 10th 1500 runs I'd ever run. So yeah, it was quite a surprise. And I think my progression in the 15 went from like high school is 356, 354, 56, 54, something like that. 354, I'd say. And then my freshman year was down to 345. And then my junior year, I didn't really run it. I think maybe a 344 or so. Then my senior year, that's where it went from 345 to 338 to 337 and then 330. So it was just one of those freak years where it all just hit right.
Man, you would have been the fastest bloke in Oregon at that time, and that's saying a bit with some of the talent that's come out of that town.
Yeah, my God, man! Like, if you could take the last 10 years of Oregon Duck milers and make a 4x4 team, based on like taking them all at their prime, I don't know. There's so many names to put out on that platform. So I'll be curious to see, put that out to the public. I'd be curious to see with like the roster names, like what 4 people would choose.
That'd be who have you got? Who are some of the guys that have come out of there? Obviously yourself and Centro. And then who was some of the other, not even to mention blokes like Galen Rupp, who could probably drop a pretty mean 1500.
Yeah. Well, there was like Ed Cheserek who ran a 350 on the indoor mile. Right? Or 349. He broke 50. Yeah, 349 indoors on a mile. There's James Hunt, who's just run like a 336, I think, right now. And there's Eric Jenkins. There's Elijah Greer. There's Mac Fleet, and I'd say Elijah Greer's in there. What else do we have? Yeah, Galen Rupp. I'm probably blanking on a few others, but at one point we had 4 guys who had all run about 357 average. And I remember we took a crack at the 4 by mile collegiate record, and it was going to be an American record, but our fourth American had a banged up calf or something like that. So we brought in our other guy who was an international runner. His name was Shadrach. He's still running. He's running marathons, we ended up running, I think, 16:07 or something like that. And it was like, man, it was just one of those things where if we hit it all just right, we could have been a sub-16 team, college team, which would have been wild.
Whew, that's some ridiculous numbers, man. With the quality that's coming out of a town like that, I know when I was competing against some of my close mates, whether we had the same coach or not, we would combine our training sessions, and they'd get super competitive. And as a young bloke as well, probably got way too carried away. But did you ever jump in with the blokes like Centro and do any sessions together? It was was there a fair rivalry between the two groups that were training out of Oregon?
It was a pretty cohesive group. Like when I was there, especially. So Vin Lanana had just come on board, and I was his first recruiting class. And we had like guys like AJ Acosta, another guy who come out. He ran 3:52 in the mile. So but this group of guys who I think Vin had made it very clear we were just trying to establish ourselves back in the NCAA world. It's like the Oregon of yesteryears, like this big historic running team. And so none of us really looked at it as kind of, I don't know, at least I didn't, is looked at as inner rivals within the group. But Centro fell into this 15 5K kind of category. So I was in the 8:15 kind of group. So occasionally we would overlap, but it wasn't really for a lot of the harder, faster stuff. Like every now and then maybe, but it wasn't really for anything faster than 55 kind of pace. But yeah, I kind of gravitated more into that 8:15, like rip them up, speedier workouts. But Vin had set up my sessions to be 1 week of like 1500 training, 1 week 800 training, 1 week 15:8, 15:8, and kind of prepared me real well for NCAs and therefore onward.
Yeah, man. So how does that structure look? So comparing, it'd be really interesting because a lot of the listeners here, they come from like a longer distance background, but I know for a fact that there's a lot of, we've got a couple of 400, 800 runners looking up. So the range of training or that perspective would be really interesting to find out. So like dividing between a 8 and 15 week, what does that training structure look like? I guess from a winter perspective to a summer perspective, just getting ready for a race on a daily basis. Like, would you walk us through one of your old weeks?
Oh, it's so funny you say that because I think where is it? It's somewhere around here. I have my binder that has like all these weeks in it, and all my training logs in it. I could pull out a week in there from like different dates and tell you about it if you really want me to go and try and find it. But the winters were those winter falls were kind of that base training, and everyone kind of feel like knows this. It's like up until about maybe January, you're just building base and trying to like get your mileage in, like get your endurance up, like stretch your lungs, and then for the indoor season, like January, February, you sprinkle some speed stuff on it while trying not to lose too much endurance. You pull back on the mileage and you boost the speed a little bit. And then come like the summer session, it's not about endurance. It's not about long workouts. It's just about raw speed. And there were weeks where I ran maybe like 36, 40 miles a week, but like, it was like a 5 mile training run. And then I don't know, like 2 times a quarter at 48 and 49 or something like that, just raw stuff. And then like 10 strides, like 11 to 12 second hundreds, and then go out and cool down. Like that would be the workout. And I don't know, I'd credit to Vin and his knowledge of how I train best, but there's also a bit of genetics to it as well, I'm sure. But yeah, Vin did a great job knowing when to push and when to put a lot of mileage on it. And yeah, the winter time was a good balance of both. And then in the summertime, it was just the hell with longer intervals, the hell with tempo runs and fartleks. It was just like, get on the track, put on the spike, sharpen up, and rip the hell out of it.
Yeah, they're beautiful. So during the winter, how many miles were you covering a week on a average week, do you reckon?
I was a different animal in college. So guys like AJ, Galen, even Centro, like they were running upwards 60, 70, 80. Some of them are over that. I was pushing 50 to 60. I think that was probably about my sweet spot. I think my first week at Oregon, Oh, I'll never forget it. I came in with a high of 56 miles that summer in high school, and I came in feeling like the bottom shelf because I was looking at this number one recruiting class: AJ Costa, Kenny Kloss, the Detman twins, like, Nicole Blood, like these big names that are just like highlighting this entire program. And then there's like Andrew Weeding, and who's that guy? He's some farmer from Vermont or something. So I felt like that bottom like the bottom rung. I was like, I cannot fold here because I can't lose this step in this program. So I put 74 miles in the first week I was there, and I gutted out my first workout, which I remembered to this like, exactly this day. It was like I was broken after that. And so after a week of trying to step up to the plate at those big boy levels, my legs were sore. I was broken. I was in for massages. And Vin immediately was like, "You're ready." Red shirt. I can hang. It's like, no, you're done. Red shirting cross. You're just getting your body ready. Oh, so yeah, that's the kind of mileage I was used to. It's like the miles that counted.
Yeah. So what you learnt pretty quickly that those big miles weren't going to suit your big long legs. You needed something a little bit shorter, a little bit sharper, and and just try and make a balance between those two. It's interesting, man, as well, because I know in the college scene, and I can only imagine it's similar, if not worse, over in the States. That there's a college mentality or a young kid's mentality that the more you do, the better you're going to be. And you learn pretty quickly that not everyone's legs can hold up to that kind of distance, and you only have to look at an ultra marathoner to see how slow twitch their fibers in their legs are to see they're not going to be busting out any 1,500 times that are going to be.
Oh man, we did when I got to OTC and we're doing a bit more of the lifting, kind of like the form work. We would measure our progress every 4 weeks by doing these little tests, and one of the tests was the vertical test, and everyone how high can you jump, and it was hilarious because the first couple times we did it, when you jump off the ground, in your head you're like, I am like holding myself in the air. I must be jumping like a basketball player because I am so high off the ground right now. This is incredible. So by like the third or fourth test, like we started to film them, and I'd go back after doing this jump test being like, oh, I must have like a 12 and a half inch 14-inch vertical. I've got to be jumping up well over the rim. This is unreal. Go back and watch the video, and it's like maybe 4.5 inches or 7 inches. Oh, really? Come on. Like that looks pathetic.
So, how were you looking after yourself in between the sessions, man? I heard you mention briefly that you're getting some massage work done, and but it's just it often blows my mind, even at an elite level, how overlooked the recovery part of your running training is. Were there certain structures and practices you had in place to make sure that your legs were fired up and ready to go come next session?
Yeah. There's kind of I got into a routine of kind of getting a massage every week, especially in the summertime when you're ripping up the speed and really putting it on your body. Like I got in the habit of needing a massage maybe every week or every other week just to kind of keep my body flushed. And the Vin kept saying, long legs, long levers. You're a little heavier than most. You have to keep your legs as flushed out and it's good to go. Yeah, it made total sense. But yeah, on top of that, there are things I now understand at the time that I didn't. Whereas like you separate two big workouts on like a Monday and a Saturday, and then on a Wednesday you do like a tempo run, like something simple, a 3 to 5 mile tempo run at a controlled pace. For me, it was like 5:20 or so, and just a little fasting run, but not up like under your race pace. So you just to really move the blood through your legs and flush out all that lactic acid from like the Monday workout, and then you worked out Wednesday. And you had the Thursday and Friday to kind of like really fully recover. Then Saturday, you knew you were going to go into the hurt locker.
So what was that? Is that 3 pretty solid sessions a week, just spread out with a day break in between that you just said?
Yeah. So again, this is a bit more transitioning from Vin's setup, my college setup, into a bit more the professional setup. And it was like 3 workouts one week, 2 workouts the other, like a Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, or a Tuesday, Friday kind of setup. And it really it varied on the week and with the workout and the time of year. But yeah, it came down to like usually 3 a week or 2 a week on I think actually it was a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or a Tuesday, Friday. That's what it was. And so, yeah, it came, depending on the season, you kind of knew what you were in for.
Yeah, okay, and that pretty much continued all the way to 2018 when you put the brakes on and said, actually, it's time for something new. Walk us through that process, man. Like, we're jumping around a little bit, but I'm just interested because I know you finished up your running career quite young. What's that? That's like about 29 or 30 when you finished it up, were you?
I was 30,
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, man. The years start to get blurred together after 25. You start forgetting. But I think, yeah, 30, 31, somewhere around there. But yeah, I don't know. I'd always been a guy who just enjoyed the thrill of chasing his passions. And in college, I just discovered running, and I was so fortunate to become a part of this program that just embellished it, and this community that just totally loved it, and just fueled my passion. Like all this fire, I was being excited and was learning new things. I was racing. I was winning this completely new world to me. That's why when I ran 330, I was just so flabbergasted because I didn't really understand what it really meant. And like there was a conversation the year after I had a training partner, Russell Brown. I was like, hey, all right, so what do we got to run this year? What's the qualifying standards? Like it's sub 335 or 35.5 or something. Oh, okay, cool. I think I'll probably go to France or something, run like 332, and then I remember funnel around 334s, and I was so like nonchalant about it. And my training partner had to look me in the face and be like, I don't think you understand what you've just accomplished. And I was like, it's whatever. It's circle running. It's all fun. So, but yeah, when that's the kind of mentality I had. And then I went into the pro circuit, and I don't know, it was just such a different kind of feel. So college was about chasing points and what can I do for the team, and how do I keep my teammates in the run for things like what kind of championship can we win together. And I don't know, there's a certain element to this sport that involves a bit of selfishness. And if you want to be great at any sport, you really have to embellish that selfishness. You got to be willing to accept that, yeah, I'm going to have to say no to birthdays or nights out or friends' parties or weddings or whatever to really dedicate yourself to the craft. And I was not really aware, not really willing to accept that to a degree. And so when I got to the professional world, my team was taken from me, and well, not taken. My team moved on, or I moved on, left my team behind. I don't know how you want to look at it, but and I kind of got stuck wondering, well, what am I fighting for now? Like, what am I hankering down here? I made an Olympic team. I guess a medal's the next big one, and a world record. I tried to like center myself around the hunger for world records and Olympic medals, but I was never someone who did it for the hardware, who did it for the glory of being on top of the podium. I did it because I loved the reaction it gave my peers, or I loved the inspiration it gave the people around me, and seeing their visible happiness from tribute to this team was just such a motivator for me. So I was looking to find what is it that's motivating me, and I guess I know this is kind of dragging on probably longer than it needs to be, but there was a year in 2013. It was right after 2012. I made the team again, like barely, and I was like, okay. 13 happened, came around, and my head was in so many different places. I wasn't like happy. I was disappointed all the time. I was frustrated. There's a lot of emotion that was just flying between the ears. And at the U.S. Championships, I squeaked into the final. I hit the auto qualifier like in the prelim, but like it took a lot of effort to do it. And I looked over as I finished, and I saw like Matt Centro made it look very easy. Like Ben Blankenship looked pretty comfortable. Lopez looked very comfortable. But I just knew that I like gritted like tooth and nail to make it to that final. And already in my head, I was like, I don't think I have it. My body doesn't feel like it has it. And so I got to that final, and sure enough, I finished. I got to 300 meters to go, and I was in the pack, and everybody shot by me. And I don't know if you probably understand it. It's like if your brain decides at any point in this race, I don't think I got it today, the whole body shuts down. Like it's just you can fight as hard as you want. Your body already knows like you're not in it. We're done. We quit. So that's what happened. A lap to go. My body started to kind of feel a little achy, and I had already been thinking about the race day before, and like my entire year. And so that was it. And everyone shot by, and I finished. And I don't know. It's kind of an it's a vulnerable thing to admit, but I didn't. I just shot off the track. I took the time for the interviews and walked through and kind of held it tight, held it together. And I got to a warm up corral, put on my clothes and left. And coach, like, you want to talk? No, I don't want to talk. And I just left. And I sat down in this neighborhood behind a line of parked cars, and I just started crying. It was like, this is not what is fun. Like, this is not fun at all. And so I had to change my whole perspective, my outlook, what I was like doing. And yeah, I had to basically grow up. That's kind of how I looked at it. And so moving forward, I changed coaches, I changed my perspective, I changed my outlook on it. And 14 was like kind of that rebirth year, if you will. 15, I qualified for the Pan Am teams, or got selected for the Pan Am teams, and I won that medal. And to me, that was it. Like I knew this is a big moment for me. I know it's not an Olympic medal, I know it's not a world medal, but it is an international race, and I felt I got the podium, the U.S. flag, I got the my anthem. That was it. This is a huge moment. And so walking off that after 15, 16 trials came around, and it was like my mind was struggling to stay focused. It's just it all seemed to kind of peter out. And I don't know, you have to want it. You have to want it so bad. And I felt like I had already kind of gotten it to a degree. I didn't get the medal or world record, but I'd been to the Olympic stage, which everybody had kind of envied. I'd done it twice, and I was going for a third time. And I was like, I'm gonna be fine if I don't make it. Like, it's not gonna be the end of the world. I can live with that if I don't. And that's when I started to realize, like, I don't think my head's in this like it used to be. So 17 came around, and I realized I was starting to watch the clock on. God damn it! Hold on.
No, you're fine, man.
Hey, Rob. Sorry, bud.
I've done.
Edit that, right?
Oh yeah, bro. Yeah. Actually, maybe I'll leave it in. Adds a little bit of quality. No,
just to break up that emotional connection that I had with your
dude,
audience.
this is really good. This is really good. Jump straight back on. So 2017, you were saying you just felt like your head wasn't really in it, eh?
Yeah, and it was just became. I remember the moment it happened too. I was at the Portland Track Festival, and I was trying so hard to kind of convince myself that I was here just to compete. Like, don't care what the time was, don't care how, like, where I end up finishing. All I care about is just fighting tooth and nail to beat people in front of me. And coming around the first lap, immediately my eyes went down to the clock, and I was like, oh, 60. 61. And suddenly I realized, if I wanted to race the clock, I could stay at practice and do this. Like, this is not why I'm training. Like, I shouldn't be training for a time. This is the most pathetic reason to be competing. It's not even competing if you're looking at a clock. So after that, 17 wrapped up, and in the winter came around, and I was just like, you know what? If I'm not enjoying it, my passion for it has kind of fizzled down to a small flame, or an ember, if you will. I feel like I'm banging my head against a wall that's not going to move. So I just, rather than spend any more time trying to do this when I'm not enjoying it, I'm just going to go ahead and hang them up. So it was a pretty easy decision, but I walked away happy, satisfied, content. I know I know a lot of people probably, why didn't you should want to get the medal, you should want the Olympics, you should want world records. And it's like, that's not what I was ever fighting for. Like, I was always doing it for what I could contribute to a bigger, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Be a part of a bigger thing. And the team was the bigger thing, and losing the team was a big part of my passion for the running.
Man, there's about 24 things that I've just taken and put up on a pinboard in my mind, so I'm going to try and get back to a couple of them. But the first thing is,
Mm.
just from a practical perspective, is as you're explaining the racing the clock. I think that's one thing that in so many conversations I have with people and know about my own running experience is whenever I started looking at a clock through a race, it was always the foundation to a really painful race, because not only are you racing the clock, but psychologically you start going, oh, how am I feeling? Am I adjusting well? Am I going to be able to come home quick? And Matt, one thing, sorry to jump around a little bit, but it was there was a few things. So before I forget, I want to get to it. You mentioned,
Sorry, there's a lot there.
no, it was great, man. You mentioned that I think it was 2014 after your race, you went and you sat out where were you, out the back of the track, skip past your coaching. 13, yeah. And you were saying that you really just needed a perspective shift, and this is something that I'm really interested in, because I think someone like yourself who's run the times that you have and who've have competed at a number of Olympics. I think an up-and-comer or a newbie to the sport would look at someone like you and just assume, oh, if only I could get to that, then that sense of satisfaction or that sense of accomplishment would be done. But they don't realize that as you progress, your expectations of what you want to achieve start to progress with you. So I was really interested just to delve into that a little bit and hear about the psychology behind that, because when you said, okay, you had made some great achievements, run some fast times, but there was a perspective shift that needed to change and something that you changed. How did you go about changing your perspective? Were there any particular strategies or any particular techniques that you used that you found helpful?
Yeah, I think the biggest kick in the pants was finishing last at the U.S. Championships. That was, I mean, my whole college career had been full of success, and then my first 2011, my first U.S. Championships after that, in a professional singlet, I finished fourth, and I cried there too, because I'd always been kind of a top three finisher. I was a podium guy. Like, losing to me was not something I could like really swallow, which is good. That's what you want to feel when you're in the sport. Like, losing should hurt more, a whole lot. So that was what I felt. And then 13 happened, and I finished dead last, and I kept my composure, because but like, it hurt so much, and it was just that kind of eye-opening experience that you're not invincible, and every college kid will think that to a degree. I came out thinking I will run 3:30 for the rest of my life, or something close to that, or even better maybe. But the reality is you're not invincible, and it takes a pretty painstaking experience to really snap you back into reality. And I'm sure a lot of people may have a tough time relating to that, because a lot of people race and a lot of people lose, and it's not very often you find someone who is so consistently used to winning. So losing is part of sport, and the more you can kind of accept it, the more and kind of grow with it, the better winner you become. And for me, I hadn't done a lot of losing, and when I did, it wasn't in running; it was in soccer or whatever, where I could put the blame on somebody else and move on. But with this situation in running, the only person to blame here is really myself. And so it was hard. Yeah, I walked away. I talked with my coach about it, because Vin at the time was starting to really beef up what Eugene and Tracktown was becoming, and I could tell his priorities were shifting in that direction. And so I felt like the best move was to maybe change coaches so that he could really focus on what he wants to accomplish, whereas I could continue focusing on what I want to accomplish. So that was the first big move, and he was very understanding and very supportive, and I think it was probably the best move for both of us. And then I met Mark Rowland, and I think the difference in coaching is really kind of a bit more of the attitude of it. Vin had this free kind of outgoing college mentality where, you got immature kids and you got to be able to like roll with whatever immature kids bring to the table. And then Mark had this, you're a professional now, like you need to approach your day-to-day schedule like a professional would. And it was a real kind of growing up moment. And I think I remember, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this or not, but I remember
Go for it.
I remember sitting down with him and being like, Mark asked me like, are you okay? You sure you want to do this? This is a very professional level. Like, this is going to be some hard stuff. And I was like, Coach, with all due respect, I'm not a pussy. And as those words came out of my mouth, I was like, I feel like I hadn't finished the sentence. So it was like, I'm not a pussy, but I did cry behind the car after I finished last in the U.S. national election. So it was very contradicting in my head, but he was very okay. I get it. You want to be a part of this. I understand. So he helped me kind of formulate my brain and see what I'm doing and what I'm being paid for and the big picture of what I'm trying to accomplish. And I was able to structure my day to get the most out of it, to kind of really grow and become a stronger, bigger, better performer. And yeah, I came down to looking at everything, nutrition to form work to drills, core, like the running itself, and then the days off, massage, recovery, all these things that I'd really not thought about. And I never really took the time to learn because I just thought I was invincible and I was going to be great forever. He opened my eyes and realized like, you can't just be invincible. Like, that's something you can maybe get by with for a year or two. And that was like 08, 09, 10, those years where I was just like kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But he's like, you're a professional now. Like, you need to approach your days as a professional. You need to consider the effects of alcohol, of like staying up past 10 or doing all these things and stuff I hadn't really thought about to consider. And it just helped me. Having a professional coach changes the way you approach the sport. Teams, medals, and world records and whatnot, but how you go about approaching them, he opened my eyes to, and that to me, I will forever thank Mark Rowland for helping me kind of put me on the right track.
So when it came to the point where you're like, you know what, I think I've had enough of this, and I've had my time in the sun. It's time to wrap it up. Like, how did you go about that? Because I even found in my own experience, I wasn't running at the level that you were running at, but to speak to my coach and even to my wife and my friends who knew me as an athlete and my whole life. You mentioned earlier that selfishness to compete at a high level is almost, it just comes hand in hand with the territory. I found the same thing. And to have those conversations and to, potentially, I don't know, it almost feels like the severing of a relationship, even though it's so much deeper than that. How did you go about making that decision?
I don't know. Running. My dad had this quote to me my dad told me this once. He's when I was in this distress of trying to be great and good all the time, he just sat me down, looked at me, and goes, "You're playing a game. Like, I know you don't say I play track, but at the end of the day, you're playing a sport. It's a game. Like, you shouldn't make a game as complicated as it is. I know that football and soccer have all these rules and plays and things you have to like really think about, but it's just perfecting your craft to be good at a game." I was like, oh man, that's so simple. Like, when you think about it, it's just that simple. And it was it had already kind of manifested itself in me that I needed to chase this perfection. I had to do A, B, C, all the way down to Z. Like, there was a thing I could be good at or be better at every day, 26 different things. And I think when you start to obsess, when you lose the joy and fun of what you're doing, and it becomes an obsession, I think there's a fine line between obsession and dedication. And I think in this sport, you have to be dedicated, but you got to be able to balance the joy of what you're doing with it. If you go over, you've become obsessed. And if you're obsessed with being great, that you've lost the focus of enjoying what you're doing, you're only going to make it harder for yourself. So it's an interesting balance. And I credit Matt Centrowitz as he has found this fantastic balance. And I mean, granted, he's a great racer, but he's very tactical and he can do it all. But he's very good, but he doesn't obsess over it. Like, if you know anything about his social media presence, it's video games, candy, and girls. Who he's now a taken man, but at the time he was like, those are the three categories. What high school kid wouldn't love this guy, right? So that was that's where I sort of started to lose it, where I was like, I need to cut out all of this fun and just hone in on this dedication, which just turned into obsession. And when I started to realize it, I was like, I don't think I can go back from here. You can't just turn off an obsession and just fix it. So my body was hurting, my my brain was hurting. The results were showing in that regard. And so at the end of the day, I said, I think I'd probably have more fun taking on the challenge of life's next chapter.
It's funny that quote that you mentioned, or the advice that your dad gave you. It's something that when you're in the heat of battle, or when you're in the middle of training so hard for a sport that you committed your whole life to, and everyone in your life is seemingly involved in that sport, it seems like so much more than a game, doesn't it? And it was funny. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. But when I left the running scene, after about 6 months, it blew my mind. It blew my mind how much people just didn't care about running, let alone middle distance runners. And I would look at the blokes in Australia who would run a fast time and then strut around like they're the king. And to everyone else, you're just a skinny bloke who's run around a track a little bit faster than someone else. And it was sort of shocking to me, because so much of my self-worth and so much of my value dictated on the time on the clock, or the place, or the color of the medal that I was wearing around my neck after a race. And to actually step away from that scene and to look back at it and go, wait a second, my whole sense of worth and value was dependent on that? Like, how that is so embarrassing. Have you found that that's been the case for yourself now you've stepped out of the sport and you've seen it from a spectator's perspective?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. It's interesting, yeah, you bring that up, because I don't know, I support like my friends still in the sport. I actually I credit them. I'm very impressed with some of them, how far they've taken their career, and I wish them all the best. But it's like, you step outside the running community, even like you go to any like local marathon or anything, like any running event, turkey trot, whatever, and you just kind of pull someone aside and you say, hey, I ran 3:30 in the 1500. They'd be like, what are you talking about? It's like 6:45. What are you talking about? You're racing the 3:30 this afternoon? That's great. Fantastic. Like people, like, nobody knows really what that means. And so, yeah, to be so, like, I don't know, self-absorbed in this, to step out and finally look and kind of breathe, you're like, oh man, who was that guy? Good Lord, I was just lost in mileage and numbers and nutrition and training, and whew. Now I go for like the occasional run just to, enjoy a nice ale or two, or just kind of keep the weight down. But it's never out of, I feel, a need or a desire. It's just a passion, a joy now. So I found that, yeah, I took a year off of running entirely, and then I kind of got that itch. I was like, I want to go for a run, and like, wanting to go for a run instead of having to go for a run is a very different feeling. So I think to go out and go for a nice stroll is a nice feeling. Of course, I have all these aches and pains that I brought with me when I left, but I can't do much about that.
So what does post running life look for you now, man? As you sip your craft beer. So apart from a few more of those, and just having some unstructured time and just running when you feel like it, how has life changed for you since you've finished up as a professional athlete?
It's changed a lot, actually. Yeah, a lot. There was a year and a half after I left, where I was just, I don't know. I mean, I made the announcement. I had a couple of interviews, and I finally, I shut the door and I turned around and looked at this like small little apartment that I was living in with my dog at the time, and it's just like, oh fuck, now what? So you just had this like freak out moment. You're like, oh my god, okay, I can do this. What the hell am I supposed to do now? All right. So I took about a year to kind of just play, so to speak, like, because when you're in the sport, you have your fun, but you kind of just you're locked in it for 10 months of the year. So I took some time to kind of just not worry about being fit so much and just enjoy what life had for me out here. And I went on some road trips. I went and traveled a little bit and enjoyed a couple of craft beers. But after about a year, I was like, okay, I need to get my life in order. I need to be doing something. So I started sniffing out opportunity. I mean, I looked at Nike I looked at all the various shoe pairs. I looked at a potential sales position at a a software company, which is I knew nothing about, but figured is worth taking a crack at. Whatever next chapter was, I was like excited to try and be good at it. And finally, after kind of hunting for I don't know, a good 6 months or so, a job kind of opened up and came my way via a friend, a close friend, and she said that we need some help at my company called On. I'd never really, I knew about it because I knew she worked there, but I didn't really know a whole lot about the company. Yeah, sure, On. Okay, so yeah, we're in sports marketing. We need help kind of recruiting and signing athletes and getting our brand out there in the track and field world. And I was like, oh man, I can still work in track and field, and I can kind of have a foot in the door. I don't have to be in shape, and like, this is a perfect opportunity. Like, so yeah, thankfully, I I owe her a lot. Like I offer her beer all the time because it's like, yeah, I owe her a whole lot because I think it came down to working at On in sports marketing or being a sales associate at a software company that I am making cold calls I knew nothing about. And so yeah, forever be thankful that I love what I do, and it's kept me in the sport, and it's kept me. I don't know. It's exciting because it's a new chapter, and the new life.
Yeah, awesome, man. Awesome. Have you seen many of Nick Symmonds' YouTube videos over the last couple of months?
Mm. Yeah, I've seen a few of them. Yeah, he's man. I was in a couple of them actually. So he that was the route I initially kind of started to want to go, but it's tough to do YouTube as a one-man band. Like I was the talent, I was the director, I was the editor, as a cinematographer, videographer, film. I did all the parts, all the hats. And like I don't know if you're familiar with what my pro career was like, but there's this small little part of it that I was doing, like these silly videos, which it brought a lot of joy to do, but it was just a lot of production to get these little videos together. And Nick's done the right way, done the right route. He found a guy who likes to edit and shoot, and he's got this good artistic eye. I was like, man, that's how I should have done it. But I think I still find ways to create silly little videos, and I guess TikTok's the new thing now. God, I sound old. It's like. But it's like shit. Like I'm having fun goofing off in various different ways. Tracklandia is the other show that we do. That I kind of get my fixing there.
Beautiful, man. I had no idea that you'd been in any of Nick's videos, or that you'd sort of started to trek down that path of it. Because I was going to say, bro, with your personality and your character, yeah. I reckon you would dominate that field. You should get back into it, man. I would love to watch you on camera.
Oh man, I would love it. I gotta connect with the right people to kind of get that going. But I don't know. I've loved movies. I love watching them. I love like watching how camera angles work, how things. I'm like, oh, this lighting's interesting. Oh, that actor says that. I bet you that was a blooper, but they're using that anyway. All these little things, nuances when you watch a film, things you shouldn't be doing, and just enjoying the story. But I just love that field. But yeah, no, but I'm in a position. I'm in a role now that garners a little bit of respect in the running community and the track and field community. And so like if I'm playing the front man of this big brand, the last thing I want to hear is when I go to recruit some college kids, hey, what, you heard of On? Hey, aren't you that guy who was doing those videos when you're running around in your underwear? Yeah. That's not quite what I was going for, but it's, yeah.
No, awesome, man. That's really good, dude. We'll hit pause on this one. How's your energy levels going, man? You're still coming across as though you got energy for days, but I want to make sure you're just not good at covering up how tired you are.
No, I'm not tired at all, man.
Awesome.
5 o'clock hits and I'm just like, oh yeah, we're good. I'm fine. We can roll whatever, man. I'm easy.
Awesome, brother. Well, we've been recording now for about an hour or so, but I was going to ask, if you want to jump across, we'll do a relaxed running community episode where I wanted to pick your brains on just some simple practical tools that you would teach people, whether they're young college athletes coming through or the new person to the track who's just got no idea about where to improve, how to improve, what to focus on. They might require an even more grand entry to the camera than what you gave the rest of the population of the running world. So just as long as you got one more of those in you, I just want to give you a warning.
All right. Hey, I'm here. Let's do it.
All right,
I'll
brother.
back the camera up. We'll go through a few drills. Yeah, let's just do the whole thing.
Well, man, for the public podcast, hey, massive thanks for making the time. I know there'll be thousands of people around the world who would love to just hear the behind the scenes with a bloke like yourself, and I'm one of them, man. So I really appreciate you making the time there.
Yeah, no worries, man. No, yeah, it's been it's fun. I was into I did coaching. I coached the high school kids for a little while, and man, that kept me young and youthful. Tell you that. But it was fun because my brain was so pro. Like I just assumed like because everyone I talked to for like the last decade or so was like new running, and to go from that frame of mind to like the high school brain where it's like you say, all right, go warm up and do some drills. They're like, how far, how fast, what drills, like what do I need to do? Can I wear my shorts? Do I need my shoes? Should I bring spikes? Like, oh God, I forgot you're stupid. Trying to like retrain how to teach all this out. I was like, yeah, I forgot. You guys don't know any of this stuff.
Awesome, man. That's good. Well, I'm going to tap into your brain in about 30 seconds on the new one. But for the public one, dude, you're a legend. Thanks for making that time, man. We'll leave it there.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for having me.